Go home. It's finished. The year's over. Your residency's over.
No, sir. It ain't over till the fat lady sings.
We have a story just into Action News. Hamden firefighters are on the scene of a 3-alarm fire at a senior citizens apartment building. The fire is reported at the Davenport Residences on Putnam Avenue in Hamden. We don't have any reports of injuries at this time.
This isn't the way these senior citizens had expected to spend the evening, recovering from a fire that filled their apartment building with smoke.
Well, I opened the door, it was full of smoke, so I put stuff in the bottom of my door, which they told us to do, and stayed there.
Well, I came down the fire escape, down to the staircase. I didn't use the elevator.
Firefighters say the blaze began on the first floor and spread quickly upward. Some residents of the Davenport Dunbar complex were still trapped inside the 8-story building when firefighters arrived on the scene. As the firefighters pulled people from the burning building, paramedics got to work treating the elderly fire victims and sending them on to nearby hospitals. What makes it so difficult for seniors in particular?
Well, it's the mobilization. They're harder to get out of their apartments and allow them to have a problem walking down the stairs.
Most of the residents were transferred to the Red Cross shelter at Keep Community Center, while arson investigators arrived to look into the cause of the blaze. Charmaine Wilkerson, Action News 8, Hamden.
Smoke had completely filled the 8 stories, and the elderly people were trapped on all the floors. And that was our major concern, getting the people out.
17 were taken to Yale and 17 to the Hospital of St. Raphael. Many of the injured were transported to area hospitals by ambulance from late last night into early this morning, most suffering from smoke inhalation. Nurses were held over from the last shift at the Hospital of St. Raphael, and others were called in to care for the injured.
We wound up with about 17 patients come in. 3 of them wound up being critical and needed to be intubated and put on respirators.
Many of the injured were treated and released, including 2 firemen. Yale New Haven Hospital said they got the emergency call just before midnight, treating 17, 4 in critical condition, 11 were stabilized, including 2 firemen that were treated and released.
Well, they were all exposed to smoke. We had some patients that were burned.
Yale New Haven and the Hospital of St. Raphael say they expect most of the remaining patients treated to be released later today. Kevin Hogan, Action News 8, New Haven.
There were signs of the fire everywhere, like security guards keeping watch outside the smoke-scarred apartment complex in Hamden, and fire investigators gathering evidence from the burned building. Fire officials say the blaze began on the first floor of this 8-story building and spread quickly upward, but tonight the cause is still unknown.
It could be a cigarette in a chair. There was heavy furniture in the library. 2, it could have been an electrical problem somewhere in the walls on the outside of the building. And 3, it could be an arson.
While town officials try to assess the damage to the complex that housed almost 200 people, victims of the fire are settling down for the night in a Red Cross shelter at Quinnipiac College.
Thank God we got people like them that, they give us a place to stay like this. We appreciate it very much.
Quinnipiac College isn't the only one lending a helping hand to these fire victims. Town officials say some 60 different organizations, civic clubs, and businesses have donated everything from blankets to food to medication. It will be several weeks before residents evacuated from the burning building can go back, though some have gone home with relatives. Of the close to 40 people taken to the hospital after the fire, 4 remain hospitalized, 1 in serious condition. But everyone involved agrees it could have been much worse. Charmaine Wilkerson, Action News 8, Late Edition, Hamden.
Good afternoon to you. I'm Gail King. Firefighters say it was truly remarkable that no one was killed last night in Hamden. 3-alarm fire there forced the evacuation of nearly 200 senior citizens from their 8-story apartment complex. No cause so far, but state and local arson investigators are looking at several possibilities. We have team coverage today from Celeste Ford, who was on the scene last night, but we began with Newton Burkett, who looked into the investigation this morning.
Was Mary Egan all right?
Yeah, she was outside. I looked out the window and here's the flames and smoke just billowing out of the library. Oh my God, I never saw anything so terrifying in my life, just billowing.
As residents returned this morning for their first real look, fire marshals who'd been here all night went very carefully through what remained, looking for clues. Fire marshals say it will take time to determine what caused all this, but so far they say it does not appear to be suspicious. They say the fire started in the building's library or reading room, a place where there were several appliances, heating, and air conditioning equipment, a short or faulty wiring in any of which could have caused the fire. In fact, sources say the air conditioner was worked on as recently as last week. Marshals know, too, that the library was a gathering place in the late evening hours for many residents who smoke.
You can't sleep, you go down there and get a book or a newspaper and sit and read. Nobody's going to stop you.
People smoke there?
We do have smokers.
Because of the investigation and heavy smoke damage to the building, firefighters say most, if not all, of the building's elderly residents will not be able to return to their apartments for 3 days. Quinnipiac College is making its dorms available to an estimated 40 to 50 residents who will be staying there beginning this afternoon. Newton Burke at Channel 3 Eyewitness News, Hamden.
Move out of the way.
The 3-alarm fire at the seniors' apartment towers on Putnam Avenue in Hamden broke out around 11 p.m. on the first floor of the Davenport building. Although the flames were contained in a library and dining area, the thick smoke spread through the 8 stories.
Sirens went off in the hallway first. Then I went by the window and I heard all this glass breaking, so I called 911 and said fire, or something is going on downstairs.
They were very, very scared, and a lot of them that they couldn't hear, you know, so, especially the old ones.
Up to 350 elderly residents were evacuated from the Davenport and the Dunbar Tower next door. They fled their apartments into a cool, wet night. The panic caused by a fire in a building full of senior citizens is best described by the Hamden fire chief. He said quite simply, it's his worst nightmare.
They were traumatized, they were confused, disoriented, and they were really afraid. It presented a great problem.
How did you manage to get them all out?
We had to literally lead everyone out of the building.
And you went down 5 flights?
Yeah. When I got down, I was out of wind because I carry a box with me all the time.
What was in the box?
Oxygen.
2 doctors set up an informal emergency room on the scene. Many of their patients were taken to New Haven hospitals, at least 7 in critical condition. About 150 others were taken to the Keefe Community Center. David Herman, a retired Hamden firefighter of 30 years, never thought he'd be in this position.
Scary. Scary. Nothing you can do. You got to depend on somebody else.
Herman is now asking why the stairwells were dark. It's one of the questions firefighters will have to answer through their investigation. But first, they must get the residents back home. Celeste Ford, Channel 3 Eyewitness News, Hamden.
And good evening. Our top story at 5:30, the aftermath of a frightening fire at a senior citizens apartment complex in Hamden. 11 people remain hospitalized tonight following the overnight fire at the church-run Davenport Dunbar Apartments. 250 citizens had to be evacuated into the chilly late-night air during the smoky fire. Fire officials say everyone was extremely lucky that injuries were not more serious. Fire was contained to a library and some offices in the building, but heavy smoke and toxic fumes caused by burning synthetic material rose through the elevator shafts in the building. Now, the investigation is centering on the wiring in that library. Most of the victims are being cared for by relatives and friends. About 3 dozen will spend the night at a former Quinnipiac College building in Hamden.